shift our focus now to the situation that still remains tense in Israel. The country is continuing to attack Hamas while the terrorists continue to hold over 100 people as hostages. There is a clamor across the globe to release the innocent souls who have done nothing and are paying the price. But the Israeli Defense Forces have also vowed to avenge the killings and the butchery of innocent killings. This is a vow that has been taken by Israel, but for many, they are paying the price for doing nothing at all. Innocent citizens, many of them who have been butchered, many also being taken hostage. Joining us on the broadcast is Sharone Lifschitz, who is a British citizen. Her parents are also feared, held captive by the Hamas terrorists. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. I can't imagine how terrifying it is for you. I'm sure you're extremely anxious. It's extremely brave of you to come forward and speak up about this. Tell us what you do know at this point. When was the last time you spoke to your parents?
We spoke to my parents at before 8:30 on Saturday morning. My uncle spoke to them, and at that time they could hear the shooting outside. They were in the safe room, and shortly after connection stopped with them, we spent a very long, anxious day trying to get news. We by then knew that there were many hundreds of Hamas fighters on the ground, looting and killing and mining in the most horrific ways and burning people alive in their homes. We have since not heard anything about my parents. We are very anxious. I know that about 120 people have been identified as missing, as hostages, but my parents are not on that list.
Okay, so when the phone conversation had happened, you did hear several shots going in the background, and did your parents describe anything, the fear that they felt? Because it took a while, I'm sure, for the Israeli residents also to understand what was really happening, because within seconds in such a coordinated attack, the Hamas terrorists came in and attacked these innocents.
Yes, the Hamas had a premeditated, murderous plan, horrendous plan that they executed extremely efficiently. They've shown no mercy whatsoever. They have done the most horrific crimes against population. We know that, but my parents' bodies were not found. Many other bodies, including babies and mothers and whole families, have been horrifically butchered. It is hard to describe the level of cruelty. It is at least as bad as ISIS. At least as bad as ISIS. The community has been decimated. Many are dead, and many are missing. And our most pressing is to call on all the nations of the world and on the Indian government as well, to ask for the immediate release of mothers and babies and elderly people. My mom is on oxygen. My dad has a lung disease. They cannot survive without their medicines. These are not part of a war. This cannot be part of the war. They have to be immediately given their medicine through our corridor and the Masia doctor, and we need to know how are they.
All right. I mean, we can only imagine the kind of emotions that you are going through at this point. But, you've spoken about, if you can tell us a little bit about the area and the fact that your father was also an activist. You've spoken about him being an active peace activist. He has also traveled to the Gaza Strip. And for them to be in this kind of a situation, tell us a little bit about the area that they are living in, because there are also questions being raised on the fact that these are residential areas where innocents, they have nothing to do with the conflict, and yet they continue to be targeted.
This is a small community of 400 people, and we are a region of small communities. There's no big cities. We are on the border. My parents have been there for 65 years. They have built a home there together with other families. It's a peace-loving community that always wanted to live in peace We are a community on the border. We have suffered from the conflict for many years, but we never forget the humanity of the people of the other side. We have to make a very clear distinction between Hamas, who is a murderous organization, and the people of Gaza. They are not representative of the people of Gaza. They are a horrendous regime that is no doubt as cruel and inhumane towards their own population. This is why we do not hear any voices of dissent. This is not because people love Hamas in Gaza. It's because if you to speak against it in a place that is as undemocratic as that is to be dead. So we have to understand who are we dealing with. We have to understand that everything we know about ISIS is similar now in Hamas, and we have to do something about it. We cannot let this continue to grow. But we have to know that behind Hamas, there are children. I never forgot that. My mom never forgot that. My father spent his retirement driving sick Palestinian people from the border in Israel and in East Jerusalem, which is the other part of the Palestinian area. We have to remember our humanity. We have to hold on in the face of such horrendous attack against humanity, not just against my parents and our community. This is an attack against humanity. And we have to stand back and we have to increase the human, the kindness, the sharing between nations, because this is not the way forward. This cannot be where it's going.
Absolutely. And these are very brave words. And you're right that peace-loving communities have also been targeted by these terrorists. But what do you say to the members of Hamas? Because they have attacked the innocents. Like you mentioned, the elderly have not been spared. The Israeli Defense Forces have also spoken of babies who have also been butchered by these terrorists.
This, I know for sure that the level of cruelty, the evidence on the ground of the dead and the maimed, and this is a level of cruelty that, you know, it's built there to destroy our spirit. It's built there to install such fear in our heart and such hate. This is what it is, because you cannot do that. You cannot. I cannot speak to this online. This is too horrific. The things we have heard, it's too horrific for words. And we fight with our humanity and for the humanity in each of us, for seeing that of us is a human being, not to be blinded by hate, not to be blinded by rage, not to be doing what they are trying to make us do. Israel has the absolute right to defend its citizens, and we know that there's going to be very difficult days ahead. But we must remember to separate between our hurting the egos and between the work that needs to be done. The work that needs to be done to eradicate this absolutely horrific organization needs to be done. It's a fight for our life. But we have to remember the children on both sides. My parents are now on the Gaza side. You know, the daughter, the ill parents and the children and the babies, they are with Hamas. We have to negotiate their immediate release. This is not part of the war. There is no war in which you are allowed to disconnect an 85-year-old woman of her oxygen machine.
All right. I want to ask you, this morning as well, the Israeli Defense Forces have spoken about several hostages being saved alive. Have you heard anything from them in this regard?
No.
All right.